This looks sweet though.
It does. It looks awesome.
It looks more eye-catching. Yeah, and not that honestly, the main thing that kind of is, I don't even want to say off-putting to me, but like the feline kind of furry elements of Whisker Squadron is like not my bag 100%, but
honestly, that was another thing that like brought me to think of Dust and Elysian Tale, is that I was you know what? Furries are the ones doing the trailblazing. They're the ones who are moving. They're the fabric of society moving us forward.
Hey, yeah.
If no one else is going to do this, I'm going to do it, God damn it.
Yeah. Like, I want a fucking furry fucking Star Fox game. No matter, like, it already basically is.
It is.
Anyways.
It literally is.
Oh, 1,000% is. Yes. Oh, yeah. See the actual puppets that they created to market.
Yeah.
You know,
those are actually awesome.
Game. They're great.
Yeah, I forgot about those.
Yeah. That would be amazing if they made a Star Fox with that level of aesthetic. Right?
Oh,
like
they could. They have the ability.
They really could. I mean, kind of how they've done, like kind of how they did with like the Link's Awakening or that new Zelda game. Like they lean into like that kind of toy aesthetic. Like,
yes.
Hey everybody, welcome to Pursuing Pixels. My name's Kevin Portelli, and I'm here tonight with John Hines.
Hey there.
And Randall Nolery.
Hey folks.
And we are back as always to talk about some video games. I swear as I was doing that intro there, I was like, I do not remember how to do this intro here, but figured it out there. Came out right, I think. So,
you're professional.
Yeah, you've only done it a few times. So
just a couple. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Just a couple. But yeah, as always, we're just going to talk about some video games here. So why don't I kick it over to John, who's been kind of gearing up for a game that he's, I thought was right around the corner, but not coming out until next year, which is closer than it seems, but a little ways off.
Well, also, we're coming up to the end of the year. Kevin, when are you going to play your
Return to the Overton? I got to get on that. I was just thinking about that. I was like reinstalling some games on my Switch the other day, and I was like, I gotta get that back on here.
I was also going through mine because I think, reached a critical mass of anticipating the new Monster Hunter game, Monster Hunter Wilds, which is going to come out next year. But I had been replaying a ton of the older games in the series, so I've been switching a lot between Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate on the Switch and Monster Hunter Rise, even though I do own it on the Switch, but now I own it because it's been on sale in anticipation of this new upcoming Monster Hunter game. I bought it again on Steam and have been making my love of it known because there's plenty of people who have very strong opinions on, did Rise ruin the series? Or no, actually World ruined the series. You need to go back to Generations Ultimate. That was the last good Monster Hunter game, but every game's great. They're all fun. They all have a great community. Like I've gotten now to the same point that I was on my Switch file in my new file on Steam. So
nice.
I've played through.
That's kind of insane.
It is. It's 150 hours. I've not put a small amount of time into this.
I mean, the fact that you have the dedication to do that, though, like, because I'll seriously, like, sit there and look at, oh, man, I kind of want to go and replay, like, Twilight Princess, and then I'm like, that tutorial's, like, an hour long, and then I'm never going to play it again. Oh, yeah. You know?
Low rank is, like, 30 hours long. That's basically the tutorial of Monster Hunter. But, like,
let alone bouncing between them all, yeah.
Yeah, but there's so much in between them, and, like, I've been talking to my friend who was the one who actually got me. He went and logged into Monster Hunter Rise however many years ago to like actually walk me through and teach me some of the basic mechanics of the game, because I had played Generations Ultimate and Rise for a good, like, I don't know, couple dozen hours between the two of them. And for whatever reason, it didn't stick because it's an obtuse series. It's kind of.
Oh, very much so.
Yeah. But like, once you get it, like, it really does open up so much. And one of the things that I was doing in Rise before I have kind of, I think, gotten to the point where I was like, okay, I need to play something else. I'm not feeling the drive to, now that I've kind of gotten back to the same point, to like push forward, and I'll pick it up occasionally to log in and do some random battles with some random people. But one of the things the last few things that I was doing on there was I decided I wanted to learn a new weapon, because the weapons are kind of like classes in the games. They all have their completely different control schemes, or it's like picking a character in a fighting game. You learn a new moveset, the combos and whatnot. And there was a weapon that I had never used before, or it seemed inscrutable to me. They all are inscrutable.
I was going to say, I feel like I've heard you say this before.
Right. And one of the things that I was doing in Generations Ultimate was I was like, oh, I should really learn, Charge Blade is one of my mains. I should learn some of its basic combos, and learning that, unlocked a basic skill that I should have been using in the prior 200 hours that I've been playing this series.
Oh, man.
Wow.
But, there's always something new to learn in the game. And, that's kind of a thing that I love about it, is that no matter what, skill level you reach in it, no matter how many times, you can always get better, and there's always more to do. And it's really fun to do that in a, cooperative setting. It's one thing being in a fighting game and being oh, I don't know how to do combo breakers, or I don't know how to do counters, and that, right. And you're up against someone who is so much better than you, and it just sucks to play and be bad. But if you're playing with 3 other people and you're all kind of doing moderately well or moderately competently, it's fine to fuck up a little bit. So I was basically spending a lot of time just learning new skills on Switch Axe, which is a more DPS based weapon than I'm used to. My other weapons are more mobility or more, I don't know. It's also kind of hard to cordon them off into specific categories or whatever, but Charge Blade, Insect Glaive, and Light Bowgun are my main ones. And then I was like, all right, I'm going to learn Switch Axe. I don't understand this UI at all. It doesn't make sense to me. None of these meters make sense. I don't understand how they fill up. I don't know what it means when they're filled. I don't know what I should do when they're filled. So, I would just go into hunts and be like, all right, I'm just going to press buttons until the monster dies. And
wow.
Do that a couple
times. So there's,
different
meters, for these weapons that you had not, really interacted with in that same way, but just specific to this weapon.
Yeah, everyone has their own, that's
God.
Part of the Monster Hunter experience, is that every weapon has their own, in addition to their own combos, they have their own UIs.
Wow.
Light bowgun and heavy bowgun have ammo. No other weapons have ammo. They don't have sharpness. Switch Axe has 2 modes. It has a sword mode and an axe mode, and you charge up your axe mode until it reaches sword mode. And this is different from Charge Blade, which has a sword and shield mode and an axe mode, and you charge up the sword and shield mode to use the axe mode.
Oh man, this sounds pretty good.
Yeah, so
this is sicko. This is good.
I've internalized one language structure. It's time for me to complicate this and start over from zero.
Absolutely. Well, that's the magic, is you're not starting from zero, because you've already learned those other weapons, and yes. I'm sure other players you play with online or otherwise might be using those weapons, or you've probably played enough online that you see online players using the same types of weapons. You know how to complement those, how and when they're going to attack, and those sort of things. That's what you're building on. That's your base foundation of knowledge going in, which is very helpful.
That's a good point. Or even hey, I saw somebody do this with that wepen. How did they do that? I got to keep experimenting 100%. Until I figure out how to do that. Yeah.
That's how I got back on Charge Blade. Where I was like, I should know how to charge my shield. I was like, I feel like that's a skill I should know. I see everyone else doing it. I don't know how to do that. And then same with, like you were saying, having people in different roles. And I randomly matched into, like, when I'm still learning switch axe, like I do not know how to play this weapon, and I get in and it's just 2 ranged attack like teammates, and I was like, all right, guess I just gotta go in hot. And so like just make a beeline, not knowing what I'm doing, just wildly swinging this weapon, hoping that I'm just like drawing all of the aggro and be like, let's see how this goes. And it's fun. It's so fun. God, I love this series.
That shows how like healthy the community is too, though. That they're like, you noob, you can't do anything.
Yeah, what are you doing? That's not how you play.
You can't even. Yeah.
I've matched into like, and because there's a fever pitch coming up to this, and like I've matched into just random matches. And so I have other people, and there was one where I joined, and the other person who joined around the same time I did was like, oh, do you want to cap or kill? Well, like, do you want to capture the monster or like kill the monster? And like the 2 other people who were running the thing that we were joining, they're like, we have no idea. This is our first hunt. Nice. And so like just immediately I went over and like captured it for them, while the other person like was typing in like the chat is like, okay, so what you need to do is like, you have the option like you have to lay down either a pitfall trap or a shock trap, and then you have to use tranquilizer bombs, which you can craft separately. And while he's doing this, I'm just going up to it and like doing like the demonstration of the explanation.
That's amazing though. Like that's actually really helpful too. And you probably all see benefit of like the split of materials or whatever you get from victory in that state.
Yeah, it's not like anybody's sitting there getting ticked off that you're getting all the loot. Well, he's explaining it and doing all the hard work.
It's just so fun. Like I've never had, I've had some bad experiences like online where, all of the passive aggressive like messages if I'm like doing a lot of carts, but they all happen in like end game content when it's like one of the last things I did with Switch Axe was I was like, I think I have a decent enough handle with this now. I'm going to do a random master rank. And like some of those are super like entry level, which are the ones that I've been primarily matching with, because most people are doing, I don't know, new people will like typically do more matches. I don't know. That's not even true. But like for whatever, like my experience was I was mostly matching with like low master rank things. And so I was like, I feel comfortable enough with this weapon that I can do that. And then it immediately matched me with like an end game hunt that I hadn't done yet in like this playthrough. And I was like, well, shit. I'm going to be the worst person on this team.
Carry me, folks.
But like, luckily enough, everybody was like so well equipped that anytime any of us lost health, like another person was instantly using an item that like heals every person on screen.
Oh, that's sweet.
So like I was really able to like have the support of everyone around me, and it was really nice. But at the same time, I was like, don't fuck this up, don't fuck this up, don't fuck this up.
No, but that's amazing. Awesome. Yeah, the fact that you can have that experience with a bunch of randos online, maybe just the nature of it being, consistently, maybe it's just the nature of it being a mostly cooperative game, and everybody's getting the loot and stuff like that, but still, I feel like you don't come across that very often, so that's cool.
No, and I'm playing with other players, the new 2K came out, and I'm not going to talk about that today, but I was brave enough to go online and play in the team setting with my, create a character's base foundational clothes. I didn't even change any of that. So look at this guy. Yeah. And it is not nearly
default
as supportive. Skin. Not nearly as supportive of a community in my experience. I'll say that. Yeah.
Oh man. Well, yeah, I guess we only got
more enticing.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I guess we got a few more months leading up to Monster Hunter. What is the new one? Wilds that's coming out?
Wilds, yes.
Okay.
And it's made by the Worlds team, which the other thing is that this game has taken longer to come out because Monster Hunter World was such a massive hit that they had to scrap the original game. They're like, oh no, that more people care about this series now. Like, we need to rebuild this and make it up to that expectations.
Dang,
that checks out.
Who would have known that Monster Hunter would turn into like the cash cow for Capcom?
Yeah,
one of the cash cows, one of the major pillars. Yeah.
Yeah. Seriously. But yeah, why don't we? You good there, John, on the Monster Hunter chat?
Oh yeah,
nice. Yeah,
good for now.
Yeah, for now. Yeah. But why don't we kick it over to Randall here for a little roguelike action?
Yeah. So I needed a new de-stress game. That's all I ever do, apparently, is seek out games.
You and me both, yep.
that I'm familiar with already to play because life is stress sometimes. And familiar already with Rogue Legacy, even back in like the PS3 days, is when I probably played the most Rogue Legacy, historically. And that's when it came out, is around like those, I want to say early 2010s, maybe.
That sounds about right. Yeah.
Yeah. Which is, eons ago in video game years.
Yeah, it was definitely one of those like kind of early like roguelike or roguelite games. I feel like it was one of those ones that kind of like help like kind of launch that trend or whatever you want to call it.
I think so too. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was one of the first games that like really solidly introduced me to like the roguelike, here's a run and you're building on that principle, I think that was the case for a lot of people. And so, I think I already had it on Switch, or somehow it was probably $2 or $2, it was probably somewhere in that impulse territory along the lines. And, I just had it in my library already, and like, yeah, okay, sure. Like, why not just boot this up? And it's Rogue Legacy, and it's 2D roguelike, and you're slashing away at stuff with your sword, and a lot of the same music playing over and over again, but it's the core gameplay's pretty solid, and collecting coins, lots of coins popping out of guys, and then you're taking said coins and you're buying stuff in a skill tree that kind of stays permanent as part of those runs, alongside the town stuff that you're kind of building out a little bit in the same way. But I had kind of gotten to a point where, in this replay through on Switch, even on PS3, I never beat the game. I think I might have beaten like 2 bosses or whatever, right? Like, it's more just like, let's throw it on and just do a run, and I died again. I got just like a hair too close to that one enemy, and that's it. Okay. So, this time around, I think I beat like the first boss, and, I was grinding away at it, but it was always like a late night thing when I'm too tired anyway, and it just wasn't going that well. I'm like, I've seen enough of this. I've bought enough things. I'm not going to unlock the mage part of the skill tree or whatever, and I've done enough sword slicing on a 2D plane here, so let's go on. It's like, there's a Rogue Legacy 2. That's right. I remember that got announced, and I couldn't even remember, like, did that get good reviews or not? I don't know. But, like, it was on sale. It was,
I know one person that gave it good reviews.
Oh, yeah?
Me.
Did you already talk about Rogue Legacy 2?
Oh yeah. John's gushed about this one, Jesus, if I'm not mistaken.
Christ.
I'm very excited. No, keep going, buddy.
Worse and worse over time. We've done a lot of these, folks.
We have done so many of these. Yes. But please go on.
That's brutal. Okay.
No, I was excited to hear like your take on it. Yeah.
Same.
So I'm like, ooh, this has got like better graphics and like more animation frames on, enemy characters and stuff, which is cool. And, there's more, still a lot of the same skill tree stuff, but from what I've noticed so far, it doesn't seem like the cost of things is also scaling when you buy stuff the same way it did in the first one, which was kind of like another thing that kind of turned me off over time with the first Rogue Legacy is, I'm buying stuff in this skill tree, but like what I thought would be my leftover money to buy one more thing is now suddenly not enough because, it's scaling up and
it's like exponentially.
Yeah. And I'm like, that doesn't feel great. I can see what you're going for, but in practice, I don't feel like that works that well.
Yeah, now it's like I used to be able to play one run and unlock something or two. Now I got to play like 5 to 10 runs just to unlock like the next thing, you know?
Right. Or have one like crazy run, you know,
Yeah.
just randomly and, oh, you know, I'll invest in this one thing, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Same with the I don't know if the enemies or the boss and or bosses were like more difficult or not, but it felt like that kind of also undercut the progression feel in the first game. And all that to say, I didn't feel I have not perceived that the same way on Rogue Legacy 2. You know, I feel like they've done a better job of balancing that out, and the platforming and the puzzle scenarios in Rogue Legacy 2 have been very engaging comparatively, I would say. There's more there. There's more variety in the gameplay, let alone the fact that you get like the the ranger, the archer character. Like, you didn't have that in the first game, and that's super cool too. Just like aiming a, you know, bow and arrow and like hitting targets, and like when you're in the air you can kind of do that little like slow time thing just a little bit to get your shot off, a la like the new Zeldas or Max Payne or whatever else, you know, just like that sort of thing. And that feels good. But yeah, lots of new character classes, which really changes up, you know, not just being a guy with a sword at a 45-degree angle or whatever the whole time, but there's other things too. So yeah, I have not been able to put quite as much time as I would have liked. I've probably only done, I don't know, like 10 runs of it, you know, which is not very much in a game like that. But I've continued to be like, yes, I do want to just keep unlocking characters as opposed to just building up one, because I want to try out all this different stuff. And then there's, God, John probably knows better than me, but there's also like a whole separate like meter system that's like a spirit meter sort of thing, separate from your HP MP, right? And that's got its own like ability to equip on like runes and things that can help your runs out and different things like that, right?
Like a passive buff kind of thing, or
it's an additional
Sometimes.
perks. Yeah, but like it is fascinating. I think I described it on the podcast. I don't think I actually went into all too much depth on like the podcast. I think like all I said, which is kind of just true, is like it's just Rogue Legacy but better. Like it's just,
it is.
It's the same game, but they just made every part of it better. And like every part is just a little bit more smoothed out or a little bit more elaborated on, like you were saying. Like like one of the things that I really love about Rogue Legacy 2 in comparison to Rogue Legacy 1 is that like there is a big incentive to play with other characters and play with other classes, and like every time I'm always excited to like play with a like class that I have. Like there's progression for all the classes. There's just infinite levels of like you can always progress in one way or another, even if you're not buying an upgrade in your tree or something. But like the more like experience you gain with each class, the more that they get that more powerful, but then those buffs also carry over to the other classes. So every single time I'm like, well, what's the class that I've like leveled up the least in? Like, let's see if I can push that a little bit further. And that in turn makes everything else a little bit easier. But yeah, like there are the runes. There's all like I'm at like a little bit of a sticking point because I'm also replaying Rogue Legacy 2 at the same time.
Oh my god!
Oh man,
which is another reason why I was excited that you were talking about it, because I was like, oh, thank
That's
God,
fantastic.
I've been playing this a ton
fresh.
too. But yeah, like they have weight, which is its own thing for your how much gear you can equip, but at the same time it also has your resolve, which is a percentage.
Resolve, that's the thing I was thinking of.
That is the perks that you get in run as opposed to your rune weight, which is your So that was when I went from Rogue Legacy 1 to 2, I remember being like, this is a little overwhelming, and I don't know how accessible it would be for someone who's never played the series before, because
That's a good point.
It does seem like it has a ton of systems. But if you've played Rogue Legacy 1, or if you're fine with just having a bunch of systems, like it's not that difficult, but it is a lot of things to keep track.
It is.
People are just kind of used to that these days. To a degree.
A million different data points. Although, at least in even early on, they do throw quite a bit at you. And maybe I would have felt the pain more if I hadn't literally just come from the first game and had all that just like second nature baked in,
Yeah.
But even still, I feel like in the first few runs, they try to slow walk it a little bit. It's like, here's just your one, I don't even remember what the knight class, maybe it is knights or whatever. Like, it's just like, here's your 45-degree angle sword guy and, go jump around and, we added this type of platforming where you can do the spin kick thing that can bounce off of, lanterns or thorns or whatever to like,
kind of like Hollow Knight style.
Yeah, which like that adds a lot too. That sort of like way more interesting platforming, but
I totally agree. The little bit I watched, because I think you had picked that up initially, John, when I had like come to visit one time, or at least you were playing it a lot while I was over. And I just remember thinking that too, like, man, this platforming looks so much more fun than it was in the first game. Not that it was bad, but it was just kind of like, you could tell this is just like a randomly generated Metroidvania map with like almost like those like arcade style platforms that we were talking about the other day, Randall, and like those where it's just like, oh, this is just a hallway of, platforms that you jump on, but there's no like interesting layout to the jumps you got to make, or where the Rogue Legacy 2 does have a lot of that, I feel.
I mean, it's a testament to being a sequel. Like, they had a game where they worked out a lot of what they wanted to do, and then they just made a better version of it. And
like, what if we could just make that game again 10 years later or however long, and add in all the ideas we've had since then.
They did a really good sequel to it.
Yeah, I didn't even go in expecting that much. I'm just like, it's on sale. I was already playing this one. I'm like, oh, no. Oh, okay. This is like way more than they needed to do, I feel like. I appreciate that. Yeah, I'm definitely going to, like, it's going to be one of my main, continue to be one of my main, like, turn this on because of stress, and now I know how to play it. So, yippee, I've gone past that threshold.
I will say there is a point that I've reached now where, like, every run is long. Like, once you get to a certain point, like, you're good
enough at
the game.
Like, I'm going deep every time.
Yeah. That's and I guess you could theoretically, like, just go towards the content that you haven't unlocked in that run. But not me. I need to go clear every single room and get every chest.
Yes.
Like, so for me,
that goes without saying. Yes.
Every run takes at least like 30 minutes at this point.
Yes, which is also why I burnt out on the first one, because I was doing that pretty much every time instead of just sprinting to the boss that I needed to fight or whatever, There
really is like a sweet spot. I kind of wonder if it might be that 20 minutes, because like I know you talked about 20 minutes till dawn.
And I was also just playing that, and I was like, actually, they kind of got it. 20 minutes is kind of ideal.
Damn.
And I veered away from it for the longest time. I said this on the Save It for the Cast when I talked about it briefly too, but I was just like, 20 minutes, do I want to play it for 20 minutes every time I play a run? And like now when I play, number one, you die at like 5 or 10 minutes half the time anyways. But then when you do make it to 20, it just feels nice. And you still feel like playing another one when you make it to 18 and you're like, fuck, man, I was so close. Like one more, it just 20 is pretty dang perfect.
Oof. I bought that on sale too.
Anyways, you good to move on from there, Randall?
Really good. Yeah, I think that's all I got for now with Rogue Legacy 2. Although, like I said, I've gone past the threshold. Gonna play more. Very impressed so far.
There's
a lot to dig into.
It's a good chill game to like, because that's exactly how I would do it. I would like play other games and then I'd be like, I'll do a run before like going to bed.
Yeah,
100%. Yeah, it doesn't have to be the main thing. It is that like side game, and that's perfect. I could use that right now. Especially on Switch, or in your case, maybe
Steam Deck or whatever.
Steam Deck. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, I need to add that to my wish list here on Switch, because I had the same experience with Rogue Legacy 1. Like, enjoyed it, didn't really get the hooks in me, but watching John play the little bit I saw of him play 2, I'm just like, okay, and now that both of you guys are basically you echo pretty much everything I saw from John playing, I'm like, yep, I need to just pick that game up.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, just for a cheesy transition here, speaking of another game that I just need to pick up at some point, although I am kind of holding out because there's a little part of me that's holding out for a physical copy here. I played the demo recently here on Nintendo Switch for the game called BAKERU, or BAKERU. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. But it's kind of like a spiritual successor to the Goemon series, or the Legend of the Mystical Ninja is kind of the main game that I'm familiar with on the Super Nintendo. They did release, I think, some of the N64 games in that series in North America over here.
Yes, they did.
I didn't know it was a Super Nintendo series. I only knew it from the N64 game.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. The N64 one's kind of like it's kind of like a zany, or I'm sorry, not the N64, the Super Nintendo game is kind of like a mix between like a top-down like Zelda style adventure, not fully that like it's not like dungeons or anything like that, but you're kind of like a top-down town RPG kind of thing.
Optional co-op.
And almost like optional co-op, and then like almost like a beat 'em up feel at times, but then like you would also go into like these side-scrolling platforming stages. Just had like a really charming pixel art. It was from Konami back in the day when they used to crank out like really high quality stuff. And so as soon as I saw this game, BAKERU was announced, and it actually came out on my birthday, which I just noticed when I watched the trailer earlier today to kind of refresh my memory. But yeah, I saw that the game was like on the like coming soon on Switch, and there was a demo before it was even out yet. So I was like, oh, let me check this demo out. And then I saw it was actually like developed by Goodfeel, and I was like, wait, Goodfeel? Why do I know that name? And I was like, oh, Goodfeel, that made like Kirby's Epic Yarn and Yoshi's Woolly World, Yoshi's Crafted World. So I was like, oh, this is kind of interesting. Like, what are they going to do outside of the realm of Nintendo? And I know I'm repeating myself a little bit because I talked about this demo briefly on a Save It for the Cast as well. But I played a little more of the demo since then because I had recorded a video. And number one, I just want to say I love the way this demo is broken up. Like, you download it, and it's obviously got like a title screen or whatever. But then once you move past that, it basically has like 5 things you can pick from, and there's like, it's like the opening cutscene. You can watch that if you want, and then you can play like a stage that is like an easy stage. Then there's another stage that's a normal difficulty stage. Then there's another thing you can pick that says it's like a robot battle or like a mecha battle or something. Sure. Yeah. And then another one you can pick that's like a dog fight or something like that, or like a shoot 'em up stage. I forget what it calls it. But nonetheless, I loved, because that's obviously, I could tell I wasn't playing like level 1, 2, 3, 4 or whatever. It was clearly just like, here's a little slice of like what you can expect from this game.
Totally.
And apparently it's like much like the Legend of the Mystical Ninja, the Goemon games, like it's very like inspired by like Japanese like folklore and like just traditional like fantasy stuff from the culture. And you actually, in the game, you travel through all 47 prefectures in Japan. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but I think it said there's up to 60 stages in the game. And again, like this one's actually a 3D platformer, and it's like, again, it's very much like inspired by those games, but it's doing its own thing. But you do play as like, you're technically this Tanuki character, but you're like transformed into this human boy that plays the drums. And then you use your like right and left shoulder buttons to kind of like, those are your 2 like drumsticks. So that's like your kind of like melee attack. And then you also can use like another button to like use your drum as a shield. But then you can kind of like do a bunch of combos. Like if you just keep hammering the same button, you kind of just like, you can't really chain the enemies together. But if you're really like alternating between left and right, you're like, hammering the beat. Like you don't have to play to the rhythm or anything like that, but you're just able to like chain from one enemy to the next and just kind of rip right through them real quick. Nice. And it's just the game off the bat. Like I said, when I had talked about it on the Save It for the Cast, I'd only played these first 2 like kind of traditional 3D platforming stages, for lack of a better term. It actually reminded me quite a bit of like Penny's Big Breakaway, which I talked about recently too. Briefly. And it's got like just that same like kind of energy to it. Like it's just so fun to play a game that's like this new IP, even though it's inspired by an older series or whatever. But it's like, oh, this game just has its own energy. And to be honest, like being that the Goemon or Mystical Ninja series or whatever is owned by Konami, or presumably they like have some rights to it, it's like, right. I would much rather see a spiritual successor to that series than actually see like, so because at this point Konami, like maybe they'll put out a good like collection of old retro games and whatnot. Maybe. But like, yeah, maybe. But like, what are they really doing for like those series nowadays? Like I know they made that new Contra game and it just looked like a PS2 game. It just didn't really look that great, where this game is just like oozing with energy, oozing with polish. It's like vibrancy, so bright and colorful. Yep. And again, it's just like kind of fresh. There's all sorts of new combos. Apparently this game's actually been out in Japan or at least overseas for a while. And it like took a little ways for it to come out here in North America or on, over here in the West. But and even on the Western release, on when I watched the trailer, it was saying like there's new like combo moves that were added to the game, like some new enemies. But again, back to like the variety and the way the demo is split up too. Like the stages too were just massive, like the regular platforming stages. Like I feel like just those 2 stages took me 20 minutes to play through.
Jeez.
Not each, but like 10 minutes per stage. And I was doing a little bit of exploring, but I definitely didn't find all the secrets and goodies and stuff. And then on top of that, so the robot mech battle, like I was thinking, oh, okay, this is just going to be some kind of like novelty boss fight thing. But like apparently, like again, watching the trailer, you have some kind of like in, in Mario Odyssey, you're flying around in like your hat spaceship kind of thing. This game, it seems like you have some kind of like flying like tea kettle that flies around and takes you to all the different locations on the world map.
Nice.
But then that tea kettle also like morphs into like this kind of like Megazord style, kaiju boss fight situation. And then you, at least in this one boss, I can't remember even what it looked like, but in the trailer, you even like face off against like a giant pyramid and like all these crazy, like, different bosses or whatever, but you're just stomping on buildings and whatnot. But again, you're using that left and right shoulder button for each of your fists. And then you're using like one of the other shoulder triggers or something to do a block. But like the combat just felt pretty engaging. Like I had to really watch what the other like mech was doing and block at the right times. And it was just way more like drawn out than I expected it to be, but not in like this is just tedious. It was like, man, this is like a fun battle. Like I barely beat it. I beat it on the first try, but like barely by the skin of my teeth. It was just really fun. And then after that, the second or like kind of extra stage or whatever, again, I was just thinking, this is going to be, it called it a shooting stage. It's like, it's just going to be some kind of like mini game, duck hunt kind of thing or something like that. But no, it's like they call it a dog fight, but you actually like play as, or you like jump into this like dog character's head. So this game has like just the weirdest like vibes going on. I was just loving like the craziness. And then I was like, then when they called it a dog fight, I was like, I kind of get it. But then again, you're using like, you have like a can, like instead of the like ears of the dog, like flapping down, they like tip up to be the wings of the plane. And then it's kind of like a Star Fox style perspective. And you can do like a barrel roll. You can use the left and right triggers again to like shoot out of your right ear or left ear, like cannons. And then there's like a laser button, but like, it just seems like it's going to throw so much variety, even in that trailer. In that same like kind of dog vehicle, it looked like there was almost like a Mario Kart like racing kind of stage. Like it just seemed like there's just so many ideas jam packed in this game. And again, knowing that it's from Good Feel, like just seeing them being able to like kind of run wild. Like not that they didn't get to do a bunch of cool stuff in those Kirby and Yoshi games, but I kind of feel like they were like really reined in by like, we're in this like arts and craft kind of theme and.
And
again,
Nintendo
they came up with
producers are always, breathing a little bit on them. That's when it's their IPs,
exactly. It's got to fit the mold or whatever. Where this is like, hey, we want to like capture the energy. Like we wish there was a new Mystical Ninja Goemon game, and like let's just make one and do our own thing with it. But I just like, again, even just seeing like the world map, because even on the title screen, you can just basically see the world map like panning across in the background. And it's literally just a map of Japan. And you're just flying over, the tea kettle with your tea kettle ship and picking the stage you want to go to. I'm sure there's like an order or structure to it to some degree. And the cutscenes are like, they seem a little bit long and drawn out, but it's just like kind of like, you're just reading what they say, pressing A, moving along so you can rip through it pretty quick. Kind of reminded me a little bit of like the production values of Sushi Striker from Nintendo.
Sure. Yeah.
It doesn't have like the fully kind of like anime or manga. Like it doesn't have quite that level of like animation or illustration to it, but it's still like kind of up there with that and like kind of like really silly like voice act or like over the top, like almost over. I don't know, just kind of silly voice acting. I don't know how else to describe it, but just all the like barks that your character makes when you're like attacking and stuff like that are just like, I don't know. I was getting a good chuckle out of it. So
nice.
I just couldn't be more pumped for this game. Like I said, the only reason I haven't bought it yet is because I think there is a physical release like in Japan or wherever, or, overseas, but there hasn't been one over here in the West yet. Obviously you can just pop in any cartridge on the Switch. So I might end up snagging it eventually if they never release a proper Western release. But nonetheless, I had no idea this game even existed. And now I'm just like, man, this could easily be like a favorite game from this generation for me. So
yeah, that's on my radar
tier,
for physical for sure. Same deal.
Yeah, I immediately thought of you as soon as I saw that, because we've had some experience, playing that Legend of the Mystical Ninja co-op.
Yeah.
Although that was one that we never beat. I think we tried a few times, but it's a tricky
it's not
one.
easy.
That's a tricky game.
Yeah, you got fish flopping around everywhere.
It's difficult and confusing at the same time.
Yes.
Yeah, and great. Even like another game to kind of compare this game to a little bit is like Ape Escape. It kind of has like a little bit of that energy to it, and maybe I'm just thinking about that because you're using like the two, these like two like batons. You're not using like the analog shoulders. Stick as much, but it's like it just feels similar to that to me for some reason. I
could see
but,
it.
Yeah, nonetheless, like I couldn't be more pumped to eventually play the full version of this game. Whether I get it digitally or not, I'm definitely gonna get it at some point.
Man, it's awesome.
But yeah, why don't I kick it back over to John here for another game that you've been digging into a little bit.
So I was just furiously Googling a bunch of years because I was trying to remember the history of this as kind of a background, because it didn't seem correct, but I have the numbers now, and I want to cast our minds back a little bit to the early 2010s and what the scene of indie Metroidvanias was like. And how back I checked that the last Castlevania game that was in the like 2D space of Order of Ecclesia came out in 2008. So it was pretty thin. Yeah.
Okay.
It was really thin on the ground for a genre that wasn't really didn't honestly have many games outside of Castlevania or Metroid.
Yeah.
And so that is where a lot of, these games kind of filled in the indie sphere, with Rogue Legacy as more of a like Metroidvania rogue but the actual here is a crafted world with, power-ups that would unlock new things and whatnot. Like, that was rare. Like, that was very, there weren't a lot of games that were actually made and built around that. And now, in, 2024, we have more than we could ever play in our lifetimes.
Oh, easily,
Yeah, God, yeah.
But, there was a period of time where there were no games in that genre other than Metroid and Castlevania. And I've mentioned on this podcast before, we've all mentioned when we were talking about on-rail shooters in 3D, we've talked about Panzer Dragoon, we've talked about Star Fox, and how that is in a similar spot as, say, the Metroidvanias in the early 2010s.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I have been playing, I almost said whiskey again. Whisker Squadron Survivor, a game from Flitfly, which is also the same developers that did Race the Sun.
That's right. That's why I remember this game. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And Race the Sun is a very minimalist, I guess, endless runner, even though it is kind of...
Yeah, it's like an endless runner arcade game, kind of.
But it's in the same... It's the same on rails thing. It's just it has gravity, so you don't have full 3D movement like you do in a shmup or
it's almost like a racing game a little bit too.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
But it's like you're just on a set track. You can't really even control your speed. You're just steering, basically. Yeah.
Yeah. And so this is kind of the next evolution of Race the Sun, where it's a full 3D on rails shooter like Star Fox or like Panzer Dragoon. And I have very similar feelings, with the benefit of hindsight and looking back at that first generation of Metroidvania games, where when I played a game like Dust, the Elysium Tale, which came out in 2012, 2013.
Oh, man.
I remember it just being so novel that an independent studio was able to make a really fully realized Metroidvania
with some pretty high production values. I remember that game having really hand drawn animation. At least maybe I don't know how well it looks now, but I remember at the time thinking this is a nice looking game.
And that's kind of the similar thing where it's I remember looking at that game and it not being particularly in like an art style that like I resonated deeply with me, but at the same time I was like, well, it has a style, and like other games like Teslagrad came out that were like a similar thing where it was like, you know, this isn't landing with me, but I'm glad that somebody's making a genre work that I really care about. And like
that ended up on Wii U, I believe, back around the Axiom Verge sort of days, perhaps.
Oh, that's
another
as soon as you mentioned the Metroidvanias, that's like one of the first games that came to mind. Yep.
Right. Which is again another game whose like art style didn't really resonate with me, but I was like, hell, like they got the like they have this. I don't know. They're working at something. They're trying something. And now we've gotten to the point where there is honestly kind of also all of the edges rounded off. Like I have played so many Metroidvanias recently that I've just completely like forgotten about because they kind of don't have that same edge or that same like lack of polish, but like character that comes from that lack of polish. And like that's kind of the feeling that like Whisker Squadron the Survivor is giving me, where it's like I don't think that like this, and it they're all nitpicky complaints that I have, where it's like, oh, I think the line art on the character models is too thin and like doesn't match up with the aesthetic of the levels themselves, which are much more like sort of a stylized Race the Sun. And I'm like, that's such a stupid complaint. Like the gameplay is good, like the progression is good, like why does that matter to me at all? But like it does, but at the same time I'm glad that that's there, because I don't know, I would much rather have something pick an aesthetic direction that I don't necessarily agree with than something that just is a bland, I don't like
cookie
that's me
cutter.
being cruel to like some of the Metroidvania fare that's come out, but like
but to be fair, there's a lot of bland Metroidvanias out there. To be fair, you know,
and they all kind of look the same, and they kind of all play the same because that formula's been like figured out, and they have like a way that, oh, this is how this genre is supposed to be played. This is how people like to engage with this, so we're not going to rock the boat or make it stand out too much. Whereas this does stand out.
Well, and I feel like, too, when you get like a Metroidvania that maybe doesn't have as much of a budget or the resources, like you're then getting into like all these areas look so similar because you're just reusing so many of the tiles and assets that, you know, you can just tell that like it doesn't like immerse you in the experience as much. And like you were saying about with the like line art and the different art styles clashing, like sometimes just like breaking the immersion of the experience is like enough to just be like, I don't know why this game isn't sucking me in, but it's just like not. I'm just not fully immersed in it for whatever reason.
It's the oversaturation of it too, right? It's kind of like in the 90s where everybody had a mascot platformer or 10, right? Because that was popular and that became the de facto thing. And I don't know if it was just like mimicking like, oh, we didn't have any, you know, Metroidvanias for so long. So then the indies filled the space, and then that became kind of the de facto indie game. And now there's too many mascot platformers again, but of a different style. It's like, we just ended up there again with a different genre.
Yeah.
But like, I really appreciate what it's doing, because I do feel like this is, and maybe this is also me not knowing enough about other works in this genre, but I really do appreciate that they're trying this thing in a like genre that I've really wanted to play for so long. I've wanted a new on rails 3D shooter.
Absolutely.
And like, it's good at it. Like it has a lot of, I don't know, some trappings that I think are just of the, you know, making a game in the modern era, where it's like, okay, it has a progression system, it has roguelike elements, and that isn't as much of what I want, but it's a new title doing a pretty damn good job. And like, I don't know, it's I've got so many feelings and thoughts that I have about it, and I want there to be more of it. And it's the other thing is that it also feels kind of weird to be making these criticisms for a game that's in early access, because before those Metroidvania games, like in 2010, you didn't have like early access like you do now.
No.
Yeah.
Like
No.
you had a full release of a game and that was it. Like this
It was hard to patch things back then,
Yes.
let alone, you know,
Right.
like still,
so like
especially on
Yeah.
Nintendo.
this is this is
seriously.
literally an unfinished game, and they're going to be making changes to it. They're incorporating criticism that is coming out of
Yeah,
this
they
game.
might even tweak that art style for all you know. Yeah. You know?
And like it's not even. I don't know. I am so confused about my feelings about it, but I like it. I'm glad they're doing it, and I want there to be more of it. And I want them to develop it more and fine tune it. And like we were talking about, like the differences between Rogue Legacy and Rogue Legacy 2. Like sometimes you do just have to like release a game and then have the benefit of hindsight. Like
Yeah.
you
Get the
can't-
feedback from the people playing it, you know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
You can't always just like tinker away at it endlessly in early access. Like I understand the idea of like, oh, we gotta have the best possible version of this game come out and like realize it as like, I don't know. Sometimes it's worth it to come out with a clunky game and have like have it make its mark on people and have it not be perfect. But
Let it go.
Yeah.
Yep.
Let
Just
somebody
let it
else
be.
take the idea and run with it or something like
or
that.
take that idea and make another version of it later.
Yes.
Like,
Exactly.
You
Heck
said,
yeah.
you know, you said Star Fox and Panzer Dragoon though, and I wish listed this all the same.
And you said Race the Sun, so
Yeah.
I was like, okay, made by them.
It's worth it. Like
Nobody
I
makes
highly
games in
recommend
this
it.
genre. Like, there's no games.
No.
I don't understand.
Which is so
Yeah.
Oh, and
it
it's a
seems like a
little
pretty
bit different.
straightforward genre to make. I have no idea about game development, but I mean, it seems like on rails. It seems like
Right.
Because
kind
like
of-
2D top-down shmups are a dime a dozen. Like those are endless.
Yeah, there's millions of them.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
And
Or
it's,
thousands.
this doesn't. I mean, I don't know. I was gonna make the claim. It's like it doesn't seem that much more complicated. It's probably
Yeah, I know.
is
That's what I'm just, I have no idea how to make a game, but
But it's
to me,
such an
it-
interesting thing because like now we've gotten so many 3D platformers as opposed to
Yeah.
like the 2D platformers, which
Yeah.
used to be the indie bread and butter.
Yep.
yeah, or it just seems like there's more of a formula. It's like you just got to come up with stages and enemy patterns, and that's pretty much all you need. And some bosses, and again, easier said than done, but
I know. Yeah. God.
but nonetheless, it's like the format's already there. You just need to have like come up with a theme and make it. You know.
Yeah. And what's your take on it? That is adding like the new variety or the new the thing that you wanted this series to do that it didn't do before.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I'm definitely going to be adding that to my wish list, especially if it ends up coming to consoles eventually as well. But
Yeah.
yeah, I'm glad you kind of re-brought that to my attention. But I don't know, any more video games chit chat before we wrap things up here tonight, guys?
Not this week.
Now.
Nice. Well, yeah, as always, you can find us on the internet pretty much everywhere. Pursuing Pixels, pursuingpixels.com. And otherwise, yeah, we'll catch you next week. And until then, take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Did we lose Randall?
Yep.
Oh, no.
Why does it do this? Why?
That was so random.
hear
It was
you
like, especially
again.
because it was like right at that second. But yeah, we couldn't even hear you for a second.
Yeah, it totally like blipped, and then I just rejoined. But now there's two Randall screens, at least on mine.
Not on ours. We just got a frozen Randall.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
But it's a default thing, so it's not like you're surprised at anything we've said.
I've heard everything now. At least we're recording. That's good. Yeah.
yeah.